Lynching is the practice of killing people by extrajudicial mob action. It occurred in the United States around the late 18th century through the 1960s. Lynching took place most frequently against black men in the southern United States. Lynching was also very common in the Old West, although victims were different. One motive for lynching, particularly in the South, was the enforcement of social conventions by dominant white parties, who punished perceived violations of customs, later known as Jim Crow laws, which mandated racial segregation of whites and blacks and second-class status for blacks. On Tuesday, July 19, 1859, John, the only Negro slave owned by Giles Kisser, was lynched. The incident happened in Saline County, located in a 7-county area of Missouri called Little Dixie because of its southern character and culture. In fact, during the 3 days in July, whites in Saline County lynched 4 slaves, accused of unrelated crimes in 4 different locations. The mistreatment of Negro slaves by whites was a chronic practice in Little Dixie during the times preceding the Civil War. Black oral tradition spoke of one especially brutal Saline County master who, as an abject lesson, chained a slave to a hemp brake on a cold winter night, where he slowly froze to death. John was accused on circumstantial evidence of the May 14th murder of Kisser's business partner named Benjamin Hinton, who also owned a slave. John was made barefoot and stripped to the waist, then chained to a walnut tree. This is an example of how John's human rights, or known as basic rights automatically held by every human, were taken away from him. An example of how powerful people gain access to social control over weaker individuals was in the summer of 1908. A white mob in Springfield, Illinois, attempted to lynch 2 African American prisoners in the city jail. Upon learning that the prisoners had been removed to safety, the rioters turned their anger against the city's black residents, killing 2 people and burning 40 homes. The Niagara Movement members were outraged that such an attack could happen in Abraham Lincoln's hometown. This is an example of massive retaliation, or known as the policy of threatening the use of massive force in response to aggression.
Financial gain and the ability to establish political and economic control were other motives. For example, after the lynching of an African American farmer or an immigrant merchant, the victim's property would often become available to whites. In much of the Deep South, lynchings peaked in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, as white racists turned to terrorism to dissuade blacks from voting in a period of disfranchisement. In the Mississippi Delta, lynchings of blacks increased beginning in the late 19th century as white planters tried to control former slaves who had become landowners or sharecroppers. Lynchings were more frequent at the end of the year, when accounts with sharecroppers and tenant farmers had to be settled.
The Red Summer refers to the race riots that occurred in more than 3 dozen cities in the United States during the summer and early autumn of 1919. In most instances, whites attacked African Americans. In some cases, many blacks fought back, notably in Chicago, where, along with Washington, D.C. and Elaine, Arkansas, the greatest number of fatalities occurred. The riots followed post-war social tensions related to the demobilization of veterans of World War I, both black and white, and competition for jobs among ethnic whites and blacks. The riots were extensively documented in the press, which, along with the federal government, conflated black movements to Bolshevism. Armed resistance movements started as a response to the riots. Dr. George Edmund Hayes wrote a report stating that lynching was a major problem.
Hiya, kids. Hope you liked our presentation. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day, guys.
Bye.